For this tutorial, I'm gonna use 3 colors, gold and brown for the flower, and I'm gonna use 3.5mm hook together with the stitch marker. So I have here 2 colors, different brand but the same, 100% cotton and the same number 4 in medium. I got this from Walmart, the black one. So this black one I use for my first hat that I made. I mean for this stitch, the cluster stitch. This is the first one. And for this video, I'm gonna use the sage color so it's easy to see. We need 4.25mm hook and the stitch marker and your needle. To start, we're going to make a slip knot. You can use magic ring if you want to, but I like to use a chain. So after slip knot, make a chain 5. And then slip stitch into the very first chain to form a ring. Inside the ring, we're going to make 8 cluster stitch. And this is the center of the ring. We're going to chain 1. And then we're going to yarn over. Insert your hook inside the ring. Make sure you're going to have this tail with you. Always hold this. Yarn over. Pull up the loop. Yarn over. Pull through 2 loops. You have 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over. Insert your hook. And yarn over. Pull up the loop. You have 4 loops on your hook. Yarn over. Pull through 2 loops only. And you have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over. Insert your hook. And yarn over. Pull up the loop. You have 5 loops on your hook. Pull through 2 loops. And now you have 4 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through 4 loops. And that is our first cluster. And then chain 1. You can put stitch marker here into our very first chain 1. So the cluster stitch is 3 double crochet together. So here's the marker stitch. We're going to slip stitch here after we have 8 cluster stitch. So always hold your tail here because we're gonna pull this tail after to make it tighter. So yarn over again, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up the loop. That's our first double crochet. So we're not going to finish the first double crochet. And then you're gonna yarn over and insert your hook inside the ring. And then yarn over, pull up the loop. So this is the second double crochet. And then we're not going to finish this double crochet. And we're going to make the third double crochet. Yarn over, insert your hook inside the ring and yarn over. And this is the third double crochet. So full pull through 2 loops and then pull through 4 loops. So we made a second cluster and then chained 1. So the cluster stitch is made of 3 double crochet together. Continue making a cluster stitch. We need 8 inside the ring, and I'll meet you at the end of this row. And here we are finished for the 8 clusters, and we're going to slip stitch here on top of the cluster stitch. Pull your tail here at the center, pull it tight so it will be close the center like this. Second row, we're going to put 2 clusters here in each space. So to start, we're going to slip stitch here. Insert your hook in this space and slip stitch and chain 1. So make 2 clusters inside this space. So 3 double crochet together to make a 1 cluster stitch. Here's the first cluster stitch for this row. Chain 1. You can put your stitch marker here if you want to, but for me, I'm not going to put. It's easy to remember. And then the second cluster in the same space. After the 3 double crochet together, always put the chain 1. Continue making 2 cluster stitches in each space, and I'll meet you at the end of row 2. We are here at the end of the row. We're going to slip stitch on top of the first cluster, the chain 1 here. And for the rotary, we're going to put one cluster in this space, the very first space. But first we're going to slip stitch and chain one. We're going to make one cluster on the very first space. So here's the first cluster stitch for this row. I'm gonna put stitch marker so it will be a little bit loose. So you can put also in the second space, we're going to put two cluster stitch. So that will be the pattern. So one cluster, and then in the second space on into the next space you're going to put two clusters. So the two cluster stitches is the increase. So one cluster, one increase, and that is the pattern for the rotary. So continue making one cluster and then one increase. And I'll meet you at the end of this row. We're here at the end of the row. We're going to slip stitch again. Always slip stitch on the very top of the first cluster stitch, the chain one here. So in every row, we're going to slip stitch here. Just like said, you can put stitch marker or you just leave like that. Slip stitch here into the very first space, and always do that before we start the new row, and then chain one. Into the very first space, one cluster stitch, into the second space, one clusters, and into the third, two cluster stitches. So we're going to increase into the third space. One cluster stitch here at the very first space. Put a stitch marker if you want to. And into the second space, just only one cluster stitch. So that is the pattern for this row. And then into the third space, you're going to increase. You're going to put two cluster stitches. Continue the pattern and I'll meet you at the end of this row. We are here at the end of the row and we're going to slip stitch to connect. Into the very first space, slip stitch, and then chain one. For row 5, we're going to make 3 cluster stitches into the first 3 spaces, and we're going to increase. So one cluster, one cluster, one cluster, and then into the 4th space, we're going to increase. So increase is 2 cluster stitches in the same space. Continue the pattern, and I'll meet you at the end of this row. We are here at the end of this row, and we're going to slip stitch to connect, and slip stitch into the very first space and chain 1. And we're going to start our row 6. We're going to make 4 cluster stitches into the first 4 spaces and then increase. So into the first space, 1 cluster stitch, into the second space, 1 cluster stitch, and into the third space, 1 cluster stitch, and into the fourth space, 1 cluster stitch, and into the 5th space you're going to put a increase. So increase 2 cluster stitches together, and that is the pattern. Continue the pattern until the end of this row. We are here at the end of this row, and we're going to slip stitch to connect. And we're going to start the row 7. So at the very first space, we're going to slip stitch. The size of the top of the bucket hat is about 6.5 inches. If you want loose or bigger, you can add 1 more row. For row 7, chain 1. So in each space, we're going to put 1 cluster stitch only. So no more increase for this row. So continue making a 1 cluster stitch in each space, and I'll meet you at the end of this row. We are here at the end of this row, and we're going to slip stitch on the top of the first cluster here at the chain 1. So here, as you can see, it's a curve now. We're going to work on the right side. Repeat row 7 and make 6 more rows. Here's the last row that we increase, and I have 7 rows of no increase. And then we're going to slip stitch and we're going to chain 1. In very first stitch, we're going to make a single crochet. So we're going to put single crochet in each stitch. So continue making single crochet in each stitch and I'll meet you at the end of this row. We are here at the end of the row and we're going to finish this last single crochet, and we're going to slip stitch here into the top of the very first single crochet that we made, and then chain 1. We're going to work on the front loop only. Here we're going to make a half double crochet, and this will be our brim. At the very first front loop only, we're going to make half double crochet. Here's the first one. So we're going to make 4 half double crochet into the first 4 stitches. Into the second stitch, make a half double crochet. Here's the third half double crochet. And this is the 4th half double crochet. And into the 5th stitch, you're going to increase. You're going to put 2 half double crochet in the same stitch. And that is the pattern. So continue making 4 half double crochet and then increase. And I'll meet you at the end of this row. I'm here at the end of this row and I have 4 more stitches left. Just continue making a half double crochet until you finish this row, and then slip stitch on top of the first half double crochet that we created. So in this row we're going to work on both loops. So chain 1 and we're going to make 6 half double crochet into the first 6 stitches and then increase into the 7th stitch. So we're going to work on both 2 loops now, just regular half double crochet. Continue the pattern and I'll meet you at the end of this row. We're here at the end of this row and I still have 2 more stitches left. Just continue making half double crochet to finish this row. and then slip stitch on the top of the half double crochet. Chain 1, and we're going to work on 8 half double crochet into the first 8 stitches, and into the 9 stitches you're going to increase. Continue making 8 half double crochet and then increase, and that is the pattern. I'll meet you at the end of this row. We're here at the end of the row. Slip stitch to connect, and then chain 1, and we're going to work on 10 half double crochet in each first 10 stitches, and into the 11th stitch you're going to increase. And that is the pattern for this row. Just continue making 10 half double crochet, and into the 11th stitch you're going to increase. And I'll meet you at the end of this row. We're here at the end of the row, and you're going to slip stitch to connect, and we're going to chain 1, and all the way around we were going to just put 1 half double crochet in each stitch. Make 2 rows of half double crochet, no increase. If you want wider, you can add more rows. So I'm done with 2 rows of no increase. Slip stitch to connect, chain 1, and this is my last row. I'm going to make a single crochet in each stitch. Slip stitch to connect, chain 1, and cut your yarn. And we're going to weave in this tail. I used 100 grams or 180 yards, and this is the leftover. And after this, you're going to cut the yarn. I think that's good enough. And we're going to start for the flower. For the flower, we're going to slip knot and chain 4. I'm using 3.5mm hook. Slip stitch into the very first chain to form a ring. And then we're going to work on here at the center of the ring. So tiny. So chain 1. And then make a 8 single crochet inside this and hold this tail. So we're going to pull this after the 8 single crochet. Always include this tail in making a single crochet. So put your stitch marker continue making 8 single crochet inside the ring, and I'll meet you at the end of this row. Remove your stitch marker and slip stitch here at the very first single crochet, and you're gonna make 2 single crochet in each stitch. Chain 1 and then make 2 single crochet here in the very first stitch. So we're going to make 2 single crochet in each stitch, and that is the pattern. Continue making 2 single crochet in each stitch, and I'll meet you at the end of this row. In this row, we have total of 16 single crochet. And we're going to slip stitch on the very first single crochet to connect. Chain 1, and we're going to put single crochet in the very first stitch, and into the second stitch we're going to put 2 single crochet. So that is the pattern: 1 single crochet, and into the next stitch 2 single crochet. Continue the pattern and I'll meet you at the end of this row. We're here at the end of this row. Slip stitch to connect, chain 1 and cut your yarn. And next we're going to attach the gold yarn here at the very first stitch. You're going to slip knot the gold yarn. And then chain 1, pull a little bit, another chain, so you have 2 chain already. We're going to make double crochet in the same space. And then chain 2. Into the next stitch, we're going to slip stitch. And into the next stitch, we're going to slip stitch and chain 2. Double crochet into the same space, chain 2, and slip stitch into the next stitch. So we have already 2 petals. And next we're going to slip stitch to create another petal. So that's how you make a petals. And one more time, chain 2, double crochet in the same stitch, chain 2, and slip stitch into the next stitch. And then you're going to slip stitch again to create a new petal. So that's how you make a petal. So just continue making a petals, and I'll meet you at the end of this row. And here the last stitch, we're going to slip stitch in here, and then slip stitch into the very first petal. We're going to just arrange a little bit. So this first petal, we're going to slip stitch. Just pull a little bit the yarn, because this does not include this stitch. So just slip stitch here at the very first petal that we created. Just pull a little bit the yarn before you cut the yarn with enough length. So just full tighter, chain 1 first to secure, and then pull your yarn tighter, just like this, and then just arrange your flower just like that. And we're going to attach the sunflower to our bucket hat. I like to attach my sunflower not too flat. I like the petals a little bit hung. So I'm going to put the gold yarn here between the brown and the gold yarn. You can use your way how to attach your sunflower, but I like a little bit hung on my bucket hat. And then you're going to tie a knot to secure, just like this. It's cute. Use your yarn needle and hide the tails or the excess yarn, and we are done. I hope you like it. Thank you for watching.